Hey Shooby Doodlers, how are you doing? I've been sorting out my artwork archive and I came across these dummies. They're all the same book, and this book never got made. I think the reason it never got made was it was just too precious to me somehow, and I couldn't take it out of me to make it something that was much more universal. I went to 2 or 3 publishers with it who initially liked it, and we sort of worked on it, and they all in the end sort of gave up and said, no, it's not really for us, we don't think. This is really a story of obsession. I first called it Jonathan's Monsters. I'm not really quite sure. Let's see if I've ever put a date in there. 1994. I had an attack of tonsillitis and was in this sort of fevered mood. And I had this sort of dream and sort of wrote it down. Oh, Jonathan, the sirens call the monsters over the garden wall. And I kind of had this idea for this story. And it all revolves around this moment, which happened when I was an art student in Cambridge. I think I'd had quite a lot to drink. I'm sorry to say it's what students do. And I ended up sitting in a deck chair with a friend of mine sort of late at night in the back garden. It was a beautiful sunny evening. We just sat there talking, rubbish, of course, as you can imagine. Drinking, all through the night. Probably keeping the neighbours awake. I'm sure it was very deep philosophy we were discussing. Suddenly, the sun came up and I had this mind-blowing moment of understanding, because the sun had gone down behind me, and I remember having mentioned something about long shadows in front of us and something like that. And suddenly the sun was coming up, blinding me in the eyes. So it had gone all the way around underneath the earth and come up the other side while I'd been sat there. And it was such a mind-blowing moment. And I remember saying to my friend, the world has turned full circle. And this became a thing I got obsessed about. And then somehow this sort of idea of these monsters got into my head. I sort of did these various versions of it. And this is Jonathan, and he picks up a little monster, and then who's trying to scare him, but he's not scared of monsters. And then he says, oh, the little monster, there's another monster, a really scary monster. And they go along there. He said, I'm not scared of you. And that one says, well, there's an even scarier monster. So off they go. This great big monster. And he says, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not scared of you. So, oh dear. So all these monsters, he's not scared of them, but they're all scared of a bigger monster who lives down the road, basically. So off they go. And in the end, he's gone into town. He's gone all over the place. And in the end, they said, there's this gigantic monster, a mountain of a monster. He says, oh, I've got to see this. So they climb up to the top. And this monster is so, ooh, there's a monster behind my back. I don't even look round. Because every dreadful sound he makes, etc. It's really terrifying. Oh, I'll have to see this, said Jonathan. And climbed up to get a better view. And far below his own house stood, and instantly he knew he'd come full circle. He said to the mountain, if only you'd looked around, you'd known it wasn't a monster, it was just little me. And he's prone to have tantrums, shout a lot. Then he saw his mother calling at the gate, and like the wind he ran downhill, laughing, tumbling into her warm, enfolding arms. Oh, Jonathan, where are you? It's time to come home. And so this was kind of when I stopped making it Jonathan's Monsters and thought, well, let's just go for the full circle thing. I've mentioned before, and I'll put a link up here, the book that really inspired me to become a children's author was Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. And I think this is really kind of an homage, and that's where it's all gone wrong. I've just become obsessed by this idea of the full circle and various other things. And they do say to kill your darlings when you're writing stuff. And I just didn't do that. I just got obsessed by things. You see, Monster movies here. This is referring to Monster on an album by a German band called Can in the 70s. This is from their cover Monster movie. And you'll notice here there's quite a lot of text going on. And I've really worked hard to cut it all down into a picture book kind of text. So we get on Jonathan's monster birthday. He got monster cards, monster toys, monster games, monster chocolate, even a monster costume. By 11 o'clock, he played with everything. I want more. Some ghastly child. I want a real monster, Jonathan growled. His mother raised an eyebrow. But you are a real monster. We'll see about that, roared Jonathan. He got his things ready for a monster hunt. 14 giant paces down the road, a little voice said, "Boo!" Here we are. "Boo to you too," said Jonathan. "I'm looking for monsters." "There's monsters in the forest," said the tiny thing. "I hear them whisper and moan, but you don't want to go there." "We'll see about that," roared Jonathan. I thought he was a monster. You can see the mountain thing in the background here. That would be. So there's a much more considered, I think, this person. He picked the little monster up and strode into the forest. The branches creaked and groaned. Small furry things scuttered into dark, dank holes across the dirt, scuttered into the darkness. "It's just trees," said Jonathan. "I'm looking for monsters." Climbing up. The leaves whispered, "There's a great big monster at the edge of the world, but you don't want to go down there." "We'll see about that," roared Jonathan, and he marched off to the edge of the world. A wall of water exploded all around him. Gigantic waves crashed at his feet. Seabirds screamed and wheeled about his head. Jonathan yelled into the squall, "It's just a stormy ocean. I'm looking for monsters." And here I'd have the waves, crashing and sort of making the shape of a sort of a monster face. The wind calmed and the waves died down. The ocean ran back down the beach. "There's a giant monster on my furthest shore," said the surf, gently lapping at Jonathan's boots. "But you don't want to go there." "We'll see about that," roared Jonathan. And this is a Viking ship. This is because of my Viking roots, Perhaps, should it be a Viking ship? I don't know. See, this is what an editor would probably say. Maybe it should be a different boat. And of course, this boat is, it's a bit reminiscent of Where the Wild Things Are, where Max goes sailing off across the day and a night and a week or whatever. So the ocean took him to the other side, where a shape rose from the water's edge, so large, so dark, it blotted out the setting sun. "It's just a big old mountain," said Jonathan in dismay. "I'm looking for monsters." The mountain rumbled deep and low. "The scariest monster in the world lives over the top and behind me. You'll see him if you climb right up, but you don't want to go there." "We'll see about that," roared Jonathan. And from the very top he saw his own little house and heard a voice calling him home. Laughing, tumbling, falling, stumbling, Jonathan ran all the way into his mother's warm, enfolding arms. The world has turned full circle. Candlelight shone in her smiling eyes. "Happy birthday, you scary monster, you." I think it's actually a very kind of 1970s kind of text altogether. Yeah. Well, I hope that was interesting or enlightening. And if it was, click down there and make sure you are subscribed to the Shoe Rainer Drawing channel and keep coming back for lots more drawing videos. In the meantime, keep drawing, practice. And I'll see you next time. You take care now. Bye-bye.